Powered by Rev Media in partnership with TSN, this is Season 5, and this is Episode 23 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. And it is presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey. And Ray, twice per week, I read this series of merchandising headlines for Canadian Club Whiskey. Always happy to do it because we're introducing, yes, the first release of the Canadian Club Invitation Series CC 15-year-old Sherry Cask. And we were both gifted with a bottle of the 15-year-old Sherry Cask late last week. And instantly, I think you reached out to me first. Not that it matters. Have you tried the Sherry Cask yet? It is delicious. And I had earlier that night, I think it was Saturday or something. Wow, is it good?
Well, Landon, my son, came over, and so I said, hey, do you want to crack the bottle? He's like, yeah, sure. So we open it up, we have a drink, and he's like, what do you think? Another? So we pulled a U-turn and went back to the bottle again. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm like, I know they're our sponsor.
Yeah.
Yes. It is delicious. It is awesome. And so my other son, Matt, is coming back home tomorrow. And so I'm not so sure how far this bottle is going to make it. But it's delicious. Outstanding. Outstanding.
Yeah. But you're part American in terms of how you celebrate the holidays, obviously, right? So you're in full holiday mode. So whether or not the 15-year-old Sherry Cask gets to Christmas Day,
it's going to be tough.
Boxing Day, it might be tough, but that just means that you've enjoyed it and you've enjoyed time with family. So
yes, absolutely.
Speaking of family, Ray, thoughts are with Tony Granato, your brother-in-law. He announced his diagnosis of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, I guess, on the weekend. So I know that, this is, troubling for you and for the Granato family, obviously. So there's the negative side. The positive side of this is, I know this, the Granatos are a family of fighters. So when I read it, my heart sunk because we had an exchange last week in prepping for the podcast where I could tell that something family related was weighing on you. And I went, okay, well, here it is. But we always kind of throw out cancer's about to get its ass kicked. This applies to the diagnosis of Tony because he's going to battle this.
Yeah, Tony really is just an amazing person. And I know I'm biased. He's my brother-in-law, and I love the guy. He's just an amazing person. But he is beloved in the hockey community. Like, the people that know Tony, that have come across Tony, fans or players or coaches or whatever it is, they just love the guy. And I mean, it was like a lightning bolt for us to hear about his diagnosis. And because he's the oldest of six, he's kind of like the bellwether of the family. Everything kind of goes through Tony, and he will, of course, he'll fight, but it's just inherent in him. He came back after brain surgery. Yeah, when he was injured, he was hit the ice and ended up he needed brain surgery. When he was playing in Los Angeles, he came back, scored 20 plus goals after he came back from this surgery. Like, it's just he's a remarkable guy, and our family, of course, we're doing what we can to support and try and learn. And so many people have reached out with thoughts and ideas and talk to this and talk to that, and so we're just kind of getting through it. But he'll start his treatment pretty quickly, and we will we'll send our prayers, of course, but we'll support. And if you can send some thoughts to Tony, because as we're learning, it's a lot different to say, this is Hockey Fights Cancer Month, but when it's in your family, it is something different. And Tony, you're the best, and we're all standing with you.
Yeah, well said, Ray, and certainly everyone associated with the Ray and Dregs podcast, including all of our fans. Certainly wish Tony and family all the best. All right, tough segue, but we'll get into the headlines presented by Tim Hortons, where their holiday merchandise is now available. So you can help the Tim's lover in your life add to their collection with new versions of the Tim's Holiday Snow Globe, ornament ceramic mugs, or the stainless steel travel mug. Check it out, only at Tim's. Big week, somewhat coincidentally for George Perron in the Department of Player Safety, because George and company were at the Board of Governors meetings last week in Seattle, and we had a couple of exchanges, conversations, about how kind of inactive it was on that front, right? He had some suspensions. He had, the McAvoy appeal and things like that, but it was pretty quiet. And he said, well, be careful because it can change very, very quickly. And did it change? So Perron's busy this week. Let's start with the David Perron 6-game suspension, an in-person hearing yesterday. Now, for those who haven't seen it, and I'm sure all of our hockey listeners and viewers have seen it, it was an after the whistle play with Dylan Larkin motionless on the ice. And that's why I think you're the same. I had to go back and watch this like 3 or 4 times just to take stock, because automatically you're drawn to, number one, how Dylan Larkin ended up motionless on the ice. Okay, well, Parker, this happens, that happens, and now you're worried about Dylan Larkin. And then you focus on what David Perron did. And you can hear the whistle, and then he circles around the outside of Dylan Larkin, takes, as the NHL video explains, takes several strides, which he did, and then cross-checks Ottawa's Artem Zub side of the head. Now, do I think that David Perron tried to cross-check Zub in the side of the head? I don't think that was the intent, but he did that. That's what happened. And did it ride a bit off the shoulder? I mean, if we're splitting hairs, Ray, maybe, but it's still an unacceptable act. And 6 games sounds like a lot, but I don't think that it could have been much less.
I don't. It was such a confusing, conflicted play, as you mentioned, with, and all of a sudden Dylan Larkin's face down on the ice, and he got there somehow, and something happened, but I couldn't tell, and I couldn't, so I went back and watched it again and again and again, and it reminded me a little bit, Dregs. I don't know if you remember the play when Joe Pavelski got hurt in the playoffs against Vegas,
and the face-off,
and with Cody Eakin, and as you went back and looked at it, now they didn't have review at the time, but the play wasn't what you first thought.
Right.
And I would say the Larkin play was the same thing. It wasn't, it wasn't exactly what I thought it was. As for Perron, I mean, like, you can try and build a case. Oh, he emotional. He saw his captain lying on the ice, a teammate, and he reacted. None of that really can matter. It's what he did that deserved a lengthy suspension. And I mean, I don't ever think of David Perron as a dangerous or dirty player.
No.
I really don't. But I don't think it was too heavy a suspension. I mean, hell, Zub is waving for the trainer.
Yeah.
1 second before he sees, like literally a second before he sees Perron coming, he's waving to the trainer. And, he kind of sort of gets his hands up, I guess. But, 6 is pretty steep, but I don't think it could have been much less, really.
No, and there is a process here that David Perron can follow and the Players Association can follow, and that's an appeal process. And it seems highly likely that they file an appeal just based on his agent, Alan Walsh, responding the way he did on social media on
right.
Monday night,
and I think they should. I think they should appeal, and
Yeah,
it doesn't
why
mean
not?
it doesn't mean that I think the suspension should be shaved off a little bit. The mechanism's there to appeal, and so heck, you're sitting there anyway. You might as well. Here's the thing: I've never really agreed with from player safety and the league is that there is no injury. I really don't believe that should be a factor, because sometimes a player would just get lucky. and not get hurt. And then other times, same play, a player gets hurt. You cross-check somebody in the head, it shouldn't matter if that player is hurt or not.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you. Do you think it's just coincidence that, in a couple of days span, we're starting to see a little bit more nastiness and a little bit more emotional? No. Or are we at a point in the regular season now where most teams have played more than 25 games and you know what you are? Maybe you're frustrated with yourself, the team, all of that, and emotions just elevate as the season progresses.
Yeah, I'm totally in that camp, Dregs. You're tired, you're worn down, you're a little frayed, your nerves are a little different. Maybe your patience is a little less. All those things kind of play into it, and I think I don't have this number, but I would suspect suspensions, multiply as the season goes on, like just for that reason. I think early on, there's a little freshness to the year, but we're a third of the way through now, and you're right. Some teams and some players are not off to the starts they want. Some are. You get caught on more back-to-backs. You're tired. You just think of how you are in your life when you're tired. You're more frustrated. And I think that all adds in.
Well, two very aggressive suspensions. I mean, the numbers don't match. And, David Perron, as we've talked about, gets 6 games for his cross-check. Eric Gudbranson of the Columbus Blue Jackets suspended 1 game for aggressive retaliation. Now, again, if those listening or watching didn't see it, you can find the video. It's pretty easy. Nick Cousins of the Florida Panthers received a major in the third period for boarding Gudbranson. Then it was reduced to a minor penalty. So maybe Eric is pissed off because the penalty was reduced from a major to a minor, or first opportunity to kind of get his own sort of retribution. A harmless enough play. I mean, Cousins is just trying to get the puck to, I think, Matthew Tkachuk, wasn't he? Makes the pass and gets absolutely gang tackled and pummeled by Gubranson along the boards. Is it a 1-game suspension just for losing his mind in the fashion that he did, given the circumstance and the level of retaliation?
I think they both should have been suspended.
You didn't like the board? It should have been upheld on the major?
It should have been upheld as a major.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Like if they uphold that as a major, the second part of that play where Gudbranson gets him up the ice, I don't know, it was a few minutes later, right?
Yeah.
That probably doesn't happen. I don't know how you could look at that play and think it's okay. Although I talked to a couple people who thought it was fine. Oh, he didn't quite get to where he's going. Well, too bad. You smashed his face into the glass. It's just like if I were Minnesota, I would be really sour that I'm without one of my better defensemen in Jonas Brodin after Evander Kane hit him in the numbers in Edmonton. Like I just don't. I get what's trying to happen. That forward is trying to get to the front shoulder of the defenseman.
Yeah.
Like that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to head him off and make some contact. And if you don't quite get there, you hit him right in the numbers. And that's, I don't think Kane had any intent. I don't think Cousins had any intent of driving the guy's face into the boards, but that's what happened. Guess what? Guys don't sometimes intend to trip somebody else, and they do. And they still get a penalty. They don't say, oh, gee, I know you didn't mean that. We're not going to give you a penalty. You still get a penalty. And so I didn't like in particular, well, 2 things. I didn't like that Kane didn't get a penalty. And on that play, there's a Hartman retaliates somewhere along the line. Edmonton ended up with a power play and scored on the power play. And then I didn't like that Cousins major was reduced to a minor. I didn't like either of those.
Well, let's add one more to the pile, and that is the Ryan Strome knee-on-knee hit with Winnipeg's Kyle Connor. Major penalty called there, no suspension. That's frustrating to Winnipeg Jets fans. But again, I think we have to understand how the Department of Player Safety goes through this. It's not just George. George Peros ultimately will make the call on whether there's a hearing and what the suspension number should be. There are other voices that are included in that. But the process is several people that Perron trusts hockey people have a look at the video countless times, and then they supply their opinion, and he decides whether or not it's
right.
worthy of moving forward. So the explanation I got yesterday for there not being supplemental discipline or follow-up to the Strome hit on Connor was that he did not extend and he didn't change his stance, right? So Strome is wide coming across there, and he doesn't throw the knee out as some suggest he did. He didn't. He maintained his stance. But my opinion, and debate me on this, he can see that Connor is right there in the trolley tracks, right? Why shouldn't he have to change his stance, right? Like, he could have made an adjustment to hit him upper body, in my opinion. Ryan Strome could have hit Kyle Connor shoulder to shoulder coming across. Instead, he stays wide on him. Connor is looking the other way. And I'm not saying it was a malicious play. I feel like the knee-on-knee could have been avoided. There could have been a different way to make contact. But that's the Department of Player Safety doesn't apply supplemental discipline that way.
No, okay. So that play is like it's in a sense, Dregs, you got to, maybe it's a little bit of a leap here, but you got to follow me on this, is that it's like a football hit. When a linebacker goes to hit a running back, for example, they square up shoulder to shoulder and they make the contact. The problem is in football, they're launching forward when they're making that hit. In hockey, you don't launch forward. So it's a shoulder to shoulder square up hit. The problem is if your shoulders don't get over your feet, the first thing that makes contact is your knees, because that means if your shoulders aren't first, something's going to be first, and that's going to be because you're bent in a skating position. It's going to be your knees. So the contact is likely going to be knee on knee, and if most of those hits, if you look at, the shoulders are square up. The second part of that is, yes, he could turn, but one of the things you try to do when you're defending, like when you don't have the puck, is occupy space.
Right.
And you're not going to try and occupy less space. You're going to try and occupy as much space as you can. And those, in my opinion anyway, those two factors lead to the play where Connor receives a knee-on-knee hit. And it sucks because I would be sour if that was me or if it was my player. I really would be. But I do think 5 minutes is kind of the call that should be made there.
Well, and look, I mean, again, I want to make it clear. I don't think it was a malicious play. When you go into something like that, nobody. Look, we can go back to the good old days. God rest his soul, Brian Marchment. I mean, the way he used to play. Of course, you knew when you, especially. I mean, you understood what
you knew what he was doing, man. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's not even a 50-50 proposition that you both could get seriously injured. You're going knee on knee. I mean, nobody wants, I don't think in today's world, is intentionally trying to do that. So I can understand the position of supplemental discipline in the Department of Player Safety, but I agree with you. I think they have reason to be sour. Okay. On to the more tamer side of the game. John Tavares hits 1,000 points with a couple of points last night. 2 points, as I say, including the assist on the tying goal for the Toronto Maple Leafs, which forced overtime at UBS Arena against his former club, the New York Islanders. And just kind of fitting, right? I mean, even though he knew what to expect. I mean, the first time he faced off at UBS last night, they're booing. This isn't new to Tavares. I mean, you know, it's not a friendly environment for him anymore. But were you always fired up for games when you were like when you went back to the island, as an example? Were you fired up to play there? Or any of the previous stops? Yeah,
for sure.
So Tavares would have been juiced and ready for that one last night.
Yeah. I don't think it ever changes. You always, even when you're, maybe if you get a couple of teams past the one team, you're like, just somewhere on the road by then. But when I went back to Hartford the first time, when I went back to the island, I wanted to play well. I know I scored my first game back on the island, and that felt really, really great.
Did you get cheered, or were they booing?
No, they were nice to me. They were good to me.
Good.
And I was with the Rangers. They were nice, but then I think they realized I was wearing a Rangers jersey, and then that was the end of that. It's all part of it. I think everybody understands what's going on, right? And so the player kind of chews on it. What was kind of neat was it was the father's trip.
Okay.
And so last night, and so John's dad's at the game, and I think that's a pretty incredible milestone.
Fired up.
But just like how fortunate that it happens to be that time that you happen to be there, that that all those things work out. So it was, I don't know, I like stuff like that. So it was pretty cool that it ended up as it did.
Speaking of the Maple Leafs, are you good with their goaltending tandem right now? I mean, because of injury, we know Joe Woll is out with a high ankle. It's at least 6 weeks. So now you're looking late January, early February for him to come back. And we were at that game. It was Toronto and Ottawa, and he was lights out good prior to that injury. So this is a significant loss. I thought Samsonov on Saturday was really, really good, but probably more so because the team played so well around him, right? Less so last night. He wasn't leaky, but there was a looseness about the way the team played. And he didn't make that 10-beller, to save him. So when you look at the combo of Marty Jones, who I know you're a fan of historically, and Ilya Samsonov, what do you see?
Well, I mean, Martin, I've known Martin since he's, 12 years old. And, North Shore Winter Club in Vancouver, and Landon played at Burnaby Winter Club. So they were like big rivals, and, we saw Jonesy a lot. And so he signed in Toronto because, as teams were looking for a veteran third goalie, it was the thought of being able to sign and stay in the city if you're in the American League that the NHL team in was a bonus for him. You're one injury away from getting in, and all of a sudden now he's here. And but I mean, when you say, are you good with it? I guess you'd always like to hope you can hold water until your starter gets back. It tells you how precarious their goaltending is, though.
Yeah.
Their best guy is a relatively untried guy, and that's in Joe Woll. And Samsonov's had a good year last year. I think you would categorize it as a good year. He's had bouts of leakiness that have plagued him since being a first-round pick in Washington. And I guess you have to hope that the goaltending, when you say, are you good with it? You have to hope it's adequate.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be the best, but it can't be the worst.
All right.
And in particular, because you're not behind 6 Norris Trophy winners there on the blue line. So the back end of their team has to really, I think they've all got to realize this is a little bit different spot for them. And it may require them to play a little bit differently than they're comfortable playing.
Right. By the way, let's rewind just a little bit, because I do want your opinion on the tying goal, which forced overtime, and that was the second assist for John Tavares, goal scored by Morgan Riley. But the National Hockey League had given the Toronto Maple Leafs permission, right? If Tavares gets the 1,000 point, which he did, clear the bench. Everybody quickly come onto the ice, have a celebration, and then let's get back at it. And that's the way it unfolded perfectly, though, right? Like, it wasn't it was a to-do. Like, I mean, you could tell that everybody was over the moon happy, but it didn't drag on for like 2-3 minutes either. Everybody did their thing and left.
What's funny is the game I did Thursday, I guess, was in Washington, and Ovie got his 1,500th point. So one of the Dallas players is standing there, and they've got a little thing up on the board for him, and you couldn't. when you're on the ice, you can't really hear it sometimes. And so the player says to me, "Is that for his 1,000th point?" And I go, "No." I go, "No, 1,500." And the guy goes, "Whoa, that's a lot of points." I go, "Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is." He wasn't even close. He's like, "Is that 1,000 points?"
Wasn't it like a couple of seasons ago when Wayne Gretzky on the TNT panel said, "Well, the first 800 goals are easy."
Right.
Right.
They just fly. Yeah, they just fly by it. I'll tell you, Ovie's got some work to do. It's not going to be as easy as it may have looked.
But that's why I bring it up, because maybe Wayne wasn't necessarily joking at the time. Of course, he's having some fun with it, right? And he talked about how he hopes Ovechkin catches him. There was some truth in that statement, because I'm still a believer in Ovechkin. I think it's going to be a real difficult challenge for him to catch that one. But what's undeniable is the legs aren't what they used to be anymore.
Well, I'm telling you, I've watched them twice this year, and two things really stand out for me. One is their power play is no good, which forever it's always been good, and that's always 10 to 15 goals a year for Ovie on the power play. In that power play, teams now are killing with such big people that the guy that takes away Ovie's one-timer, who kind of stands in his pocket, he's also big enough to play the low pass too. So it's not really a 4-on-3 if they just took Ovie away. It's kind of like they got to find a way to get him more involved. Otherwise, he's just a pedestrian standing there. Number two is off the rush is going to be really difficult for two reasons. One, he doesn't skate like he used to skate. Right. Certainly so far this year, he looks like time got him. The second part is they don't really have a transporter with the puck for him. And he's not going to create space himself. So those are two real big challenges as I see it.
Messy third period for the Calgary Flames last night. They give up 3 to Colorado in a 6-5 loss. Mikko Rantanen with a goal and 2 assists. And I remember at the start of the season, I mean, Colorado's so easy to talk about because they've got so many different options to talk about. But you had mentioned Mikko Rantanen, just how much you love the way he plays.
Yeah.
He was fired up post-game over Arturi Lekkonen's dad. I guess, is it Ismo? He's a Finnish broadcaster, right? Ismo Lekkonen. So do you want to hear the sound? You want to hear the sound bite? I think everybody's heard it. Why don't we play this sound bite and then we'll respond to it after that.
Actually, one thing where I got a lot of extra energy. One of our Finnish NHL players' dad was talking shit about me in the media that I didn't train last summer like I used to do, and he was just making things up. So I think that was for him. If you talk shit, it's gonna come back at you. So.
The Mikko Rantanen. Now, how difficult a conversation is that to have with Arturi? He's talking about his dad, which is fine. I mean, if dad is going public and ripping Mikko, then all bets are off, right?
Yeah, but Dregs, you've met and talked to a lot of Finnish people.
Yeah.
Subtlety is not their way. Like you're like, how difficult a conversation? They're going to have that at breakfast. He's going to be having a coffee. He's like, yeah, tell your dad to zip it. That's going to be about how quick that goes. But I'll tell you, it's like, so obviously Landon was playing and I'm broadcasting, and I'm sure he heard more than once, hey, your dad's got a big frickin' mouth. Like
oh, no doubt, yeah.
And so what's the kid gonna do? He's like, well, I don't know, we'll go tell him. Like, I don't know. So it is kind of funny. I mean, they're on the same team, and Mikko didn't appreciate his opinion, that's for sure.
Well, whatever motivates you, but clearly he was motivated by Ismo Lekkonen. So anyway, good soundbite. Those are your headlines. Thank you to Tim Hortons. Our interviews on Ray and Dregs brought to us by Canadian Club Whiskey. Off the top of the pod, we talked about the introduction of the first release of the CC Invitation Series. CC's 15-year-old sherry cask. It's wonderful. Get out, Trust me, you'll enjoy it for the holidays. All the hallmarks of classic Canadian club with the added richness and sweetness of sherry. Couple of submissions for Ask Ray and Dregs Anything, right? And if you're interested, you can send us your questions or comments to our social accounts at Ray and Dregs or on our website, rayandregs.com. Scott Wilson wants to clarify the decentralizing of the NHL draft. And he makes the point, and it's a good one. It just means that the teams aren't sending their entire hockey operations department to the city of the draft, right? Because there's a lot going on at that time of the year, especially now with the networks liking the fact that we've dragged the draft into late June. Well, what happens after the draft in late June? You've got free agency just a few days after that, and it really makes it tough on the general managers and management of these NHL clubs. Right. So, to clarify, there is still going to be significant NHL club presence in the city of the draft, on the floor of the draft. Do
you think so?
That's what they keep reminding us. They keep reminding us. I don't like it because I think it takes away from the experience of the player, even though you're going to have pictures. Those guys will go to their home cities and away they go.
But you're saying like there's going to be significant team presence at the draft.
Well, that's what they tell us. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so what do you mean? You're going to have the general manager and the two assistant general managers and the head scout in city of draft, and everybody else is going to be trying to connect via phone from the war room in the city of the team. Like, how's that going to work? I don't see how logistically that's a fit. Yeah. I think what you have is it's going to be basically like the NBA draft and the NFL draft. The teams are in their facility where they have everybody together in one place, which is the same place that they're running free agency out of.
Yeah.
Like I just don't see how you're going to split management teams up so you could have a representative. You know what might be there, which would be really cool? What if, of course, I just thinking off the top of my head here, Dregs, what if each team had a couple of their legacy players at the draft? And so like Pittsburgh would have Mario Lemieux at the draft to hand out the jersey to, with the commissioner to the player that they draft, like go through any team like that. And I think it would be kind of cool for that to happen. But the complication of getting everybody to and from and the expense to and from, and I get it. I get why they're leaning that way.
Yeah, and I think it will still be a live draft, so that isn't going to change. Yep. But again, at the Board of Governors meetings last week, I had a team come to me, and look, the vast majority of NHL clubs, wanted to decentralize for all of what we've talked about here. But I had one, and I think there are probably 4 or 5 that would fit into this group. If you're a young manager or a young member of management, having an opportunity like you have at the draft to have face-to-face conversation, to meet guys and all of that, highly valuable. And I had one team in Seattle say, man, we were vehemently opposed for that reason. Younger management, they're just trying to get going, get their legs under them. And it's valuable to be in the same city, in the same hotel, or, having just sometimes casual, sometimes
so
don't
they have the Board of Governors meetings? Don't they have the general managers meetings?
Yeah, do it there.
Well, do it there then.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always a way around it. And the fact of the matter, the expense and the logistics are really difficult.
Yeah.
And it's not like it used to be, where teams would have 6 or 8 people at the table. It's not that way anymore.
All right. Ivan Adams has a final question for us here in Ask Ray and Dregs. Has it ever been pushed by either side, be it the NHL or the Players Association, the salary cap be post-tax to level the playing field? Certain cities like New York draw high-profile players, but so do low-tax cities. So if the money meant the same in all 32 cities, wouldn't it be more fair? I think it kind of defeats the whole purpose. Like, the salary cap, the way it's designed now, creates a more level playing field, right? Because if you're talking post-tax dollars, unless I'm misunderstanding his point or the question here, if New York and Toronto had a cap that was post and could pay Matthews and Nylander and all these guys more to get back because they're in a higher tax market, I don't think that would fly.
Well, I think he's probably, looking at Tampa that is able to pay players because of their no state tax.
Sure.
But okay, so in theory, great, sounds fine. What happens if Tampa trades a player to Toronto?
Yeah.
What happens to his salary?
Yeah. Yeah, it would get convoluted in a hurry.
No, well, not convoluted. It would be impossible.
Yeah,
it really would be.
Right?
Like it would be impossible to. So some guys would get a raise, and some guys would get pay cuts, and like that. That's not going to fly.
Yeah. Anyway, in theory, it was worth bringing up, but I don't think we can find a way to support that. All right. You're in Edmonton, correct?
I am. So the Oilers are zipping along here, 7-game winning streak.
Yeah.
They're back to 500 since the first day of the season for the first time. How about this, though? Like, we said this last pod that, there's a lot of wins coming in a row here.
Mm-hmm.
The last couple of years, the Oilers have done this. They've had a long stretch where they've just hit every note.
Right.
Last year, they finished the season 18-2-1. Now they're 7-0. Their team record is 9 straight wins. They should win tonight. Chicago's here. Seth Jones isn't here. He's not going to play tonight.
Yeah.
They've got 3 defensemen. Well, actually, let me get this so I don't screw it up. So they've got 4 defensemen with a combined 100 games playing tonight.
Yeah.
A combined 100. And the Oilers are, they're hitting it on all cylinders right now. It's 7 straight multi-point games for McDavid. Whatever that mid-body injury was that was bugging him, that's long gone.
That's not bugging him anymore.
Oh, boy. So I got Edmonton, Chicago tonight, and then home for Florida, Vancouver on Thursday.
Nice. Sounds good. All right. Well, we'll
How about you?
Let you get on with your day. You know what? Pretty standard. We've got the Leafs and the Rangers on TSN tonight as they play back-to-back there. I'm looking forward to that one because the Rangers, as we've talked about here, man, they're a story. And Igor Shesterkin always seems to light up the Leafs. He just always seems to find a way. So looking forward to that. And then just kind of, you know what? I count the days too. So I don't even know. What's the date today? The 12th? Yeah.
You're not counting 12th? It that. It's pretty hard to count it if you don't know today's the 12th.
Well, I start around the 15th of December and I count to the holiday roster freeze.
Oh, because then you can take a breath.
Yeah. Yes. Then we're sit back and just chill for a week or 10 days or whatever the hell it is. So that's what I'm looking forward to. The freeze.
I got one thing to say about the Rangers. You asked earlier, are you okay with the Leafs goaltending? Would you have bet Jonathan Quick would be 8-0-1?
No.
Man, amazing. He's had an amazing start. Talk about a guy that is a battler. Until the last time he pulls his skates off, that guy is going to battle. Yeah. And I thought last year in Vegas, I'm like, you know what? It looks like it's getting a little quick for him here, a little fast for him, and apparently not. He's been amazing
Great
this
story.
year.
Yeah. All right, buddy. We'll let you get on with your day. It's going to be a busy one, and we'll reconnect on Thursday or Friday, whatever the guru of the pods, Ryan Rashog, decides.
Hard to believe, eh? We're going to listen to him. Life's changed. Thanks for listening, everybody. Rashog's going to figure this out for next time.
And thank you to our sponsors who continue to support our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey, and, of course, Tim Hortons. And, yes, thanks to you for sharing, for rating, for listening, and for following us on the Ray and Dregs YouTube channel. Until next time, stay safe, everybody.